Over 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. I told you that. You don't listen.
So you look like you've been on vacation.
I was in Florida.
Or South.
I didn't want to come back.
I'll let her sit down. And Josh, come in the room.
Call to order the Schenectady Urban Renewal Agency. First item on the agenda is a resolution for the investment report for 2023. Entertain a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
By Toro and C. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution stands adopted. Next item is a procurement report for 2023, Resolution 2025-03. Entertain a motion to approve that.
Approve it, motion.
By
Second.
Toro, seconded by Porterfield. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution stands adopted. Next item is the measurement report for 2023, Resolution 2025-05. Entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Moved by Patrick, seconded by DeToro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution stands adopted. Next item is procurement report for 2024, Resolution 2025-06. Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Moved by Toro,
Second.
seconded by Mancini. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution stands adopted. Last item is a measurement report for 2024, Resolution 2025-07. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Patrick, seconded by DeToro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution stands adopted. Any other business to come before the agency? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Porterfield, seconded by DeToro. All in favor?
Aye.
The agency stands adjourned. Thank you.
I'd like to call the order Schenectady City Council Committee meeting for Monday, April 21st, 2025. Our first committee is finance, and so Mayor, we do have the award and the bidding contract. I know that someone else is also coming to speak to that. Would you like us to move this to the end of the agenda?
If I can answer the questions, we can move forward on it. If there's questions that I can't answer, then hold it.
It's up to you, because he said the gentleman said he'd be here by 6, so we could just take finance later in the agenda when he's here, and then we can do it all at once. Unless you do have another thing on the agenda as well. So,
It's your call.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Okay. So, so the first, I'm sorry, Mr. Williams.
So I'd like to call to order finance. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight, the first of which is the award of bidding contract for the Mohawk Harbor Overlook and multi-use pass to Carver Construction, Inc., and a total amount of $298,174.
Good evening. My name is Danielle Krupa. I am a project manager at Schenectady Metroplex. I'm presenting on behalf of Chris Borland tonight. Metroplex assists and oversees the ongoing coordination meetings for the construction of the event center and the hotel at Mohawk Harbor. As stated in the legislative request, this project creates a public overlook at Mohawk Harbor for residents and visitors to enjoy the natural waterfront that is accessible from the bike path. The overlook was designed in cooperation with the property owner and Metroplex and the city, obviously, to ensure that it fits seamlessly into the owner's plan for the site And the landing is going to be located on the riverbank between the event center and the parking lot for the Hyatt Hotel. The recommendation is to award the bid
Oh,
of
sorry.
$298,000.
I'm sorry, the public didn't hear any of what you just said.
Okay, you want me to start that over?
Yeah, I'd love
Okay,
that.
that's good. Okay, hello everybody, my name is Danielle Krupa, I'm a project manager at Metroplex, presenting on behalf of Chris Wallen. Metroplex assists and oversees the ongoing coordination meetings for the construction of the event center and the hotel at Mohawk Harbor. As stated in the legislative request, this project creates a public overlook at Mohawk Harbor for residents and visitors to enjoy the natural waterfront that is accessible from the bike path. The overlook was designed in cooperation with the property owner, Metroplex, and the city, and it's going to sit between the event center and the parking lot for the Hyatt Hotel. The recommendation is to award the bid of $298,174 to Carver Construction for the overlook project, which is within budget. Both the event center and the hotel are currently on schedule, and we will continue discussions of this project at the bi-weekly coordination meetings to ensure the overlook project is completed and works logistically into the schedules of the other ongoing development projects. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Ms.
I
Porter.
have a question for Mr. Guttman in terms of the purchasing of, so the financing of it. Could you come here? So I just wanted to, so the purchase amount, the lowest bid, so this is already in the budget now?
Yes.
Okay. I do have a further question. There's a letter here to Mr. Palumba regarding, okay.
I can clarify that. So there was one of the bidders withdrew their bid because they were only bidding on the electrical portion, and so they withdrew the bid, and that was, I think, what that letter was clarifying.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we have a motion. I'll second. All those in favor? Aye. The next item on the discussion is an update regarding the purchasing policy. Mr. Guttman.
Good evening. Let's put back into the cycle for this time. The council had some questions from Mr. Ron Gardner, so he's here tonight to answer those questions.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner? Appreciate making the time, sir. I definitely had my question, but I would like to open it to any other council members. So I guess I'll ask my question. Mr. Gardner, the last time we were here, we talked specifically about adding another column to, in essence, grade the efficacies of bids meeting the WMDE requirements outlined in the state. When it was presented to us last cycle, there was no comment towards that as it wasn't highlighted or included. Can you just talk to your reasoning for not including that? Is that your stance not including it moving forward?
No, I can do that. So I misunderstood that. So you want a column added to the purchasing policy related to the bid results?
So my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it was putting in place another measure to understand what efforts are being made.
Gotcha.
Because there are some times where the intent might be there,
Right.
but the implementation might not be there,
Gotcha.
and wanting to understand what efforts the companies are making to meet those requirements from your department.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I'm not prepared to do that, but I mean, that's what we can do. That's not an issue at all. I mean, we do that all the time in terms of the utilization reports and measuring the value of what they're putting forward for their utilization plan and what effort that they move on to, demonstrate the good faith efforts. So that's an ongoing process. But if it's something you want me to add to the, in the reporting format, to a column or something like that, I can do it how we want to do it. You want it done like on a monthly, quarterly basis or per day basis.
So, Mr. Gardner, how I understood it, and I guess what my question wasn't so narrow. It was more along the lines that in the past, we've talked about like, you know, how we're trying to go back and kind of retrofit equity into our policies and making sure that we're meeting our requirements. I guess my question is, because it was presented to us that things haven't really changed what was before us, and so it was just kind of standard for how we always usually do things. So I guess my question to you is, are we missing some things here? Is this an opportunity to take a fresh look at this so it's not something that we have to go back and correct? Are there things that are missing from this policy right now that will closely align or get us closer to meeting our goals?
Okay, well, going to your question in terms of the standard, our standards are very, very specific in terms of the good faith efforts and the efforts that the contractors are moving forward to achieve their goals and objectives. And that's clearly, you know, documented in terms of the documentation that's submitted with the bid and during the contracting process. So, you know, so that's what we do that. And if there's prior to them, you know, getting the contract, we look at obviously, you know, the utilization, what do they do, who do they reach out to, how do they make the contacts, and what the dialogue, you know, going back and forth. So we do all of those things on every single, you know, bid that moves forward.
Spencer?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify. I think, didn't we just update this policy, was it last year or was it the year before? I mean, it's been updated, I think.
It's every 2 years.
Every 2 years?
Yeah.
So it's relatively new. I remember going sort of line by line.
Exactly.
Mr. Moran?
Just, I have a question for Mr. Gardner. Mr. Gardner, we have workplace goals, administrative regulations, and procedures that deals with guidance concerning good faith efforts. What you're talking about right now, is that in our regulations?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
It's not in the policy, but it's in our good faith regulations.
That's exactly what it is.
That's where, and this goes out to all the potential vendors, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would suggest is maybe do this as an addendum to the policy, so it's all in one place. You know, attach it to our purchasing policy. I just, you know, that.
Yeah, Mr. Rivera's not here, but he did have a specific question about, on page 13, number 3 for the apprenticeship. Do you recall that, Mr. Guzman? And he said that the amount should be $500,000?
No, that's what you want.
It was originally 300,000.
Right. Can you come up? So, okay.
It was originally 300,000 from the previous purchasing policy. I was under my impression, there was a little miscommunication with me and Ron. I thought it was 300,000. He did say yes, he agreed with the policy originally. We discussed last week, and he recommends putting that amount to 500,000.
So that change has been made in here?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make, because that was the question from the last time. All right, thank you.
Mr. Fuller?
Yeah, so again, I think my question is a little more broad to you, Mr. Gardner, is that if you are not happy, if we're not happy as far as, you know, because I know when we talk about it relative to other municipalities, I guess the question is there something that we can do differently while this is up for consideration to increase the likelihood on our end, to increase the likelihood of us meeting the goals more regularly or even better? I know what the standard is, but I don't think that that's something that we want to limit ourselves to.
I understand what you're saying. So to that effort, there are many components that goes into why our numbers are not where we would like them to be. I think on a per capita basis, I think we're fairly consistent with just about every other municipality in the state. Our numbers are right there. We are consistent with where the state is in terms of all the contracting opportunities upstate as it relates to NWBE. So our goals and reaching those objectives as close as we can, we're very much compatible to where, you know, everybody else is. To address that, to get better results, that's why we go through the extensive efforts of capacity building, workforce development, and all those other pieces that we're trying to do to make for a better, more competitive workforce for our local contractors, and also assisting our contractors to be more competitive in the bidding process. So this is what we do every day. That's a consistent avenue. We're very happy in terms of with the efforts that's going forward in terms of having conversations with contractors and getting participants, in front of them. It doesn't work out in every case. I mean, you can't make somebody do business with somebody, but we're doing everything we can to at least eliminate the barriers, that are there. And some of the barriers is, one of the pieces that's a challenge is to get this cap piece here, limiting, the amount of contracts that we can grow in that. So that was one of the barriers. Another barrier is, access to capital, access to bonding, and just overall efficiency in terms of managing, bidding process and all those things. So that all goes into this process to make this work.
It sounds like there's a lot of contributing factors to that. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. So I guess what I'm talking as it pertains to this policy, outside of the adjustment that Madam President already highlighted around from the 300,000 to 500,000, is there any other things that you think should be made differently, anything we should do differently as it pertains to this policy to help us right now? Do you think that just that movement from the 300,000 to 500,000 is sufficient at this time?
I think that's sufficient.
Okay.
And the policy itself certainly gives us the tools to work and move forward, the support of the council and the mayor's office and all those things. That all work. But the policy itself certainly gives us the tools and the, I guess you say, the influence to have folks become more serious with, where we're trying to go. So again, it's a long-term process. A lot of work and thought has gone into, the policy as it stands. The policy, is working. We are getting more quality contractors, in the process, and they are becoming, more successful. But the policy as it stands is really a great tool to have, and I'm very proud of the efforts that we put into it. I'm happy with the results that we're getting out of it. And primarily because, when you have a conversation with contractors and vendors, they're very serious, and we're sort of, being known as the, more competitive, I should say municipality when it comes to this area, specifically in this region. I think we're getting, more results. We're having more hands-on, honest conversations with the contractors, and it's primarily because of, support of this body and obviously support of the mayor's office and the departments, as a whole. Because, again, we have to, work with departments, engineering, the water departments and all, anybody that lets the contracts out, and so they have to be on the same, the same team or the same understanding that if we're going to make this happen. So.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you. Ms. Patrick?
Yes, just backing up one step, but mostly for the public. I think in terms of some of the longer term strategies that you were referring to a little bit earlier, could you just talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you do to work with youth and younger people to the kinds of programs that we do with the Seed Center and other things like that?
Again, that's part of the workforce development of building that workforce. So we're trying to introduce more people to the industry as a whole, and we're trying to do it in a fashion to let people know that the construction industry has every discipline in there. It's not just a matter of somebody with a shovel and a hammer. You got architects, legal, all that stuff is in there. And when we work with folks, through our workforce initiative or our construction skills program, it's not specifically set up to teach somebody how to be a sheetrock, paint, or whatever. It's just simply to introduce them to the opportunities in the industry that they're not necessarily aware of. And then from there, we try to put them on a trajectory to go where they want to go. So if somebody wants to get into the carpentry, that's where our relationship with the trades, with the industry partners and community colleges, that's where that comes in to sort of prepare them for that, for that next step. And also what we're finding is, even though we talk about young people that's coming through the program, these are not necessarily 19 or 20 years. I mean, the range is running from, let's say, 19 to 53, for example. So it's a true reflection of what we have in our community. And also I find that even though you talk about business entities, if you will, or business individuals, they have some of the similar challenges in terms of, dealing with the thing. For example, just something as basic as math. People tend to struggle a lot, with math. It may be, reading could be a lot of things, but they're an excellent skills person. But when it comes down to preparing competitive bid and, understanding quantities and, all those type of things and all that goes into it, we have to really peel the onion back and we have to provide additional support, for folks to, get in there. So we try to deal with those things by partnering with the Career Counseling Center. They focus on, those education components, maybe the reading and math or whatever the case may be. Then with the industry partners, it's specifically set up to help with those areas that we're might be a little weak on. So whether it be estimating, understanding project scopes, and those types of things. So we try to build it so it's two parts to the objective. So working with the workforce and trying to get a quality workforce component for these firms that we're trying to grow and build up. Because typically what happens is, as soon as somebody gets, trained, whatever, what's lacking is our local small guy, he don't get that quality person because, they move on. So we're trying to build more of a pipeline, if you will, so they can come through and, understand that, the opportunity in the industry and then working with partners and collaboration and, working with everybody.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Barco?
So, Mr. Garner, I appreciate all the information you provided. Is there some written document that you have that just kind of goes over all the programs that you're doing and how many people have gone through and all that the council can have to refer back to? Because you've given us a lot of information.
Yeah. So I keep track of participants in the program and what they do. And basically, it's a running tally of who comes in, to the program for what services they come in for. And then, what's offered. So, if we have a class and what who participated and what were the results of that. And if we keep it in that fashion, and then when people are looking for participants, if you will, a contract to live with somebody, we have a list here of people that's been vetted. For example, a contractor might be living with somebody with the OSHA training. So we got a whole list of people that's gone through it and they got the OSHA training, so they can look at them and consider and move forward. So we try to make recommendations as much as we can and basically put them in a position where they can compete, at least have an opportunity at something. But again, it comes back to the same thing, getting the contractors so that they're able to compete. Access to capital, again, is a huge issue. Insurance, bonding is a monster. So all those things that we can help prepare them for is, what we try to do. And just to give an example, next week we have a workshop with New York State Department of Labor. So the 29th, and that, a lot of people have problems with, with workers' comp board, and, they get in trouble with that, and, they have serious problems. So they're coming in as business advocates to talk about, we're not here to get you, we're here to help you. So talk about what the regulations are, what you need to be paying attention to, program wages, health and safety matters, and, so those are the things that's going to be talked about. But again, that's the type of information we share to help, with John Jones, the contractor, the Department of Labor. They're not your enemy, they're your friend. But if you don't do things right, you're going to have some serious problems. And, so it's things like that we do. So next week specifically, so we'll have people coming in to, talk about that.
Yes, I appreciate it. So I'm asking, is there some place, like you used to give us like a quarterly report or something, so can we have that?
Yes.
The programs you've done with people?
Yeah.
And I'm not asking by name, but the number of people, what they can do. If we could just have that to be able to refer back to, it's really my question.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
And I know if there are any other questions or comments, but kind of looping back in Mr. O'Brien's point of having that addendum, do you think that is something that you could be in support of?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you. Hearing no other questions or comments, I'll receive a motion, or actually this is just update, correct?
So you need a motion to update the policy? You need a motion on this to move this?
So we have a motion with the caveat of including an addendum for the good faith, I forgot the accurate.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll put our current MWBE workplace goals, administrative regulations, procedures, which Mr. Gardner has talked about here. It really, whereas the policy is a broad document, this goes into what good faith efforts are, what the reporting requirements are for the vendors. So it really goes into the details that are necessary. Mr. Gardner put that together, and it's part of the documents that go out to the field and the requirements that we make part of our contract. So we should probably attach it to our policy. The policy's broad, but we refer to it in the document.
Perfect. With that in mind.
Yes, I'll make the motion to accept the purchasing policy as presented with the addendum as discussed.
Thank you. I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
On to the next item.
Thank you.
Actually, going back to the first, I don't know if I did that earlier. Did I call for a second? All those in favor for the award bidding contract?
Yes. Just two of you. Just two of you.
All right, the last item on the agenda is the agreement between the City of Schenectady and the SCEA,
All the ones.
1,000 for the City of Schenectady, Unit 8501 of Schenectady County Local 886. Mr. Guzman?
Mayor, would you like to take a point on this?
Can come to an agreement with CSCA at this point, seeking the authorization from the council to have me enter into a formal contract.
Thank you. Ms. Warfield?
Yeah, so we had a discussion about this a couple of weeks ago, so I just wanted for the council to know the full understanding of what we're doing here and what's happening. So I know that, I'm not sure if Ms. Bywater is here or if the mayor wants to take that, because the last time we discussed it, there was the original which had needed some corrections. And so the corrections were going to be coming in a separate document. And so my understanding from the mayor is that we have to vote through the original ratified contract, right? And then the correction can be made. So tonight before us, you're asking for?
To approve the agreement between the city and CCA.
The original one?
Correct.
All right. And so what is the process going to be in terms of, and did everyone see the documentation in their packet? Including the correction. So the original one had some errors made in the grade and step, which would impact obviously the salary on that line. And so the correction would be that that those errors would be corrected in that second. The first one was called the MOA, the second one was called the MOU. So again, the MOU would have to be signed after we after the MOA was passed. Mayor, can you speak to the correction part of it, how that would happen?
Again, it's been indicated to me is that CSCA had identified a typo in the original agreement. When they voted on it, they were aware that that typo existed. So upon the council authorizing me to formally sign the agreement, we will then enter into a subsequent agreement that would correct that typo. Really, it just moves one employee to a different rate of pay, a different grade. Just to be clear, the mayor, as my understanding is that that's not the second part of that to make the correction is not something the council would need to take any action on. At this point, we're just treating it as ministerial, where it was a typo, and that those things happen, and we'll correct it administratively upon the authorization to sign the formal agreement.
Mr.
Yeah, I mean,
O'Brien?
I think that's what was this, you know, I think that's was discussed previously, that the CSEA has voted it out. What's before you is that document. You're going to vote on that document. The correction, the errors have been pointed out to you, what needs to be corrected. So the MOU is referring back to the MOA that you're going to vote on, and the corrective actions that need to be taken in regarding that document that both the CSEA has voted on, and next week the council votes on the 24th.
Right. And our earlier discussion, so I just want to be clear that the council does not, because we talked about it doing two things, but you're saying that now that the council does not need to vote on the corrections.
Right, it's just a corrective action. You're aware of what the title is, and it's just, as the mayor said, it's a ministerial action referring back to the document overall that you've agreed to, and it's correcting that title and step that you're aware of, and that signs it, and then it can be moved forward.
Mr. President? Yeah, just procedural question. Why won't we just fix it before we voted on it? If we know
Because they've already voted on it.
Okay, and so in order to fix it, it'd have to go back to them for them to vote it out again?
Right.
Okay.
Right, so just to move the process forward, it's before you to vote on it, and then...
With the understanding that it's going to be amended.
Exactly.
And then the only point of consideration I'd like to add is when Ms. Porterfield raised her concerns, a lot of the emphasis was the full union made aware of those level of changes. So I think although we've established a level of understanding that we just need to pass it through, and then the mayor, under his purview, is able to proceed with any adjustments, I think that still allowed us to get some clarification. So I think the process, although it still got us to the same point, was very informative, at least to myself. So I would say if there are no further questions or comments, ma'am, Ms. Worthy.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear. So once we vote through it, once it gets voted through by the full council this coming Monday, then the corrective action will be taken after the council takes its action. Is that correct?
If everything moves forward, I'm looking to take that Monday night or first thing Tuesday morning.
I know that Ms. Bywater said she's going to be here. She want to speak?
Mayor, did you have communication with Mrs. Bywater? Is she coming to speak tonight?
She did indicate she was not coming.
Oh, last email I got said she was coming.
There was an email late today after I talked to you that she had declined, or they weren't coming because they thought everything was in order.
Oh, well, I just want to make sure, and just be open and honest, and you probably kind of need to make sure that the council, that the council is taking its responsibility, and any corrective action is within the mayor's purview, and so we've done our due diligence. That was what the whole conversation was about to begin with, and for the record, how this got to me was actually the union president came to me. It's not something I would define. That is how it got to the table, that I got involved in the discussion. So just so everybody's clear, that once we take this action, the mayor takes this action, then it will be what was discussed at the union meeting. As long as we're clear about that, that's just what I needed to make sure.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the agreement with the amendment.
I will second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There are no items that will fall in the Finance Committee. I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I will second. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
Okay, I'd like to order government operations. So we have one item on the agenda today, and that is the discussion around this Schenectady Poet Laureate and Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Very excited to have some language before the council to be considered. We've had a lot of discussions and it's received a lot of positive feedback from the community. From my previous conversations where I sought to incorporate some of our local academic institutions, one of our representatives from SUNY Schenectady, I'm going to butcher your name, Timothy, but Dean Conhouse is going to have the opportunity to share some words of feedback from this language that's here right now, and the hope is to take back any edits or amendments. So I think at this time, if you'd like to come up and speak. All right, perfect. I will take that as a sign of support. Any other questions or comments, Ms. Patrick?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the points that I made last time, because they're, still not really, I still think that the person should be receiving some sort of honorarium or payment for the work that they're going to be doing, especially in terms of the work that they're going to be doing in the schools and running programs and that type of thing. And I also feel that in terms of the qualifications for the Poet Laureate, I still feel like it does have a proven, here it says a proven history or catalog of published works, but it says or public spoken word performances, and I still feel that a body of published work is more valid in this case. Interestingly enough, the New York Times had an article yesterday talking about how we really need to continue to encourage people to read books and try to be literate in that way, that it will be something that otherwise we might lose in our society given the proliferance of AI and the use of AI in certain things. So I just wanted to go on the record again to suggest that those two things be added or changed within this description.
So good. And what I appreciate you. So though I understand, there's a lot of power in language, no pun intended, or with the topic that we're discussing. And when you talk about published work, there's a lot of different ways nowadays to self-publish one's work. Again, I could be making some assumptions, but in our earlier conversation, our previous conversation, we were talking about, I think the more traditional published work of people. And I think that especially in a place where we're talking about art and expression, we want to be clear that we're not narrowing the scope so far that we don't get to take advantage or cast a wide enough net to attract talent that traditionally doesn't show up in some of those more traditional works. And as you know, when you think about the inequities or really disparities as it comes to published work, we have to be really mindful of that. So I want to make sure that we're not perpetuating that and removing access from someone who's a really amazing artist, but might not be published in a traditional way, but maybe has some self-published work or has demonstrated the ability to do this work. And as someone who's been working with spoken word artists for over the last 10 years, I have a really good understanding of what the talent pool is, if you will. So I want to make sure that we don't just cast wide. We don't narrow it down so we aren't excluding people.
So I just want to understand and clarify, when you talk about published work, did you have a specific, must they have, I'll let you answer that. So in terms of published, what are you saying it absolutely needs to be?
Well, again, if it's an established poet, someone that would get to the status of poet laureate, I would hope that that person had published books of poetry. Not just a poem perhaps in a journal or a poem in the Gazette or, something like that, but really has a body of work that earns the title of laureate in a really significant way. So that's what I meant.
And I would say my two comments, I think I can call on a conversation I had with Dean Kay. It was wanting to make sure this position encompassed a lot of different areas of poetry and how that definition in of itself is still expanding and developing. So by no means does this limit it. And I think as this nominating review committee develop its own actions, I think this is just a mechanism they use to receive applicants. And I imagine as they are then vetting those individuals, I think that allows them to then grade them, but not, to Mr. Farley's point, restrict us from receiving applicants. And then the second part I wanted to add is, sincerely, whenever we talk about budget and money, I think that always sends red flags to our tax base and to our finance department, our finance committee, as we have to evaluate where that money comes from. So I think, well, from my intent, it's if we can get this position filled, that will allow someone to understand its impact in the community, and then we can take this into our next budget cycle if we truly consider moving forward with that. But I think with all the mechanisms it takes to put in place a budget amendment, I am cautious with the new position.
So, sure, go ahead.
Well, I actually didn't necessarily think that the city would necessarily be paying that honorarium. I had some other ideas for other sources of funding for that, that we could, especially with some of the partners that you've indicated here. And then I think under the qualifications, if you look at point 3, it says proven history or catalog of published works or public spoken word performances. Perhaps we should change that to and. Or and or, because if it was just public spoken performances, then there's no published work of poetry.
Because when you think about it historically, like there's some of the like great poets that we reference often in our daily quotes right now, who at the time didn't have published bodies of work due to their identity. And now that we've moved away from that, well, mostly moved away from that as a society, it's only now that we really get to enjoy their work and their contributions. So it's really important that as we move forward as a body, that we're not perpetuating that unintentionally, because the quality of someone's talent and ability doesn't necessarily correlate to what, you know, if they have published work or not. It really has a lot to do with opportunity and access. And if you look at just the gender or racial gap between published authors of poetry, you'll see it's compelling. So it's like if we add that type of restriction, then, you know, unintentionally we'll be encouraging or really discouraging, you know, certain demographics from participating. Go ahead.
I mean, I do hear what you're saying. I think back to Homer, obviously had not published anything. He was a spoken poet, I think. I turned to the dean, but I'm pretty sure that his work probably was spoken. So it's not a new thing. Yeah, I still would maintain, and again, I'm gonna back off now. I've said my piece, and the selection committee hopefully will be people that actually are determining the qualifications. But I just think that it's important for that stature. It's not someone that, you know, just for the last several years might have been doing some spoken performance, but rather it's somebody with a, you know, length and breadth of a career as a poet.
Ms. Porterfield, and Dean, I saw your hand go up actually.
If I may say,
Sir,
You
if
just
you're
have to
going to speak,
come-
you have to come up so that the government, the public can hear you. The government can hear you.
They always can.
if I may, a word of caution in terms of publications. So we do live in an age when people can self-publish themselves. So they can literally pay to have a book done,
Yes.
which does not necessarily mean that it's professionally done in some cases. The other thing that I would say in regards to publications is that there is a hierarchy to them. And so some publications are more noteworthy than others, and that's important to take into consideration. So I think you need to be mindful to cast as wide a net as possible. That's why including spoken word artists is important.
Thank you. Well, actually, those were my points. I don't think that we should narrow it down to someone having like published a book in terms of how that's in the library or wherever it is, but that we did. I think part of the reason that this is being done is to open it up to those who normally have an opportunity to serve, but they have the skill, etc. But they never published a book in the way that we're accustomed to seeing it. So I think we should broaden that, as the professor has said, that we should broaden that and not narrow it down to that. I think that takes a lot of people, takes away the opportunity for a lot of people to, be a part of this. And I think we already got an email from someone, right? Yes. Who was interested. And I don't know a lot about his background except what he said. So I didn't read through it thoroughly, so I'm not even sure if he's even published a book, although based on the face of it, it seemed pretty interesting, what he had to say. So I am going to also just reiterate that I don't think we should narrow it to someone having to have published a book. I think that we can broaden what published looks like and sounds like.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on this?
Excuse me.
Ms. Mayor?
Just Does anybody talk to civil service? To bring government into it. Somebody else may agree to one of these. There might be a job description. There might be, whether it's, I don't think there's one in Schenectady County, even though I think the county might have been considering it. But some other municipality or the state may have it that would be out there as a reference.
Mr. Williams?
Just to answer that question, I would say the county does not currently have one, and building this in an area that is unique to our city, taking into consideration, I know I've looked at specifically St. Louis. They had a really extensive framework that not only went into detail about what the poll laureate would do, but also what the committee would do, how many times the committee would meet, and I think that really ironed it down. However, wanting to build this and allow our nominating and review committee, if that's what we tend to support as a body, I think allowing them to due diligence to set the precedence for our city, but this at least gives enough guidance where we can understand what this position is for them to build upon that.
I think I have Mr. Turner on this.
So I did, excuse me, Mayor, I did some research, and there is a New York State. She actually served for 2 years, and then it hasn't, her whatever hasn't been renewed. And there were 5 cities in New York State who have poet laureate, mostly downtown, downstate. So, and you know, it went into explain each one what their. I googled each name. What they published, what was out there, and what their salary was or stipend, anywhere, I think, beginning at $5,000 with $3,000 for any continuing engagement. So, I mean, it, again, with the work that they're going to do, I think it's almost expected at some point that, you know, we do work that into a budget if this is something we're going to go through with. But so we would probably be like the 6th city in the state with a poet laureate.
Sorry, I keep looking. Saratoga has a poet laureate who's a well-respected poet, and I just want to comment on a more humorous note that one of my favorite poets is Billy Collins, who was actually the U.S. Poet Laureate at one point, and then he became the New York State Poet Laureate. Our New York State Writers Institute at UAlbany does that tradition for our state, and when Billy Collins accepted his position as the state poet laureate, he kind of talked about how he was sort of stepping, it seemed to him like he was kind of going down from U.S. to New York State, and what was going to happen next. Would he be like the poet laureate for Peekskill or something, or wherever it is that he lives? But that's just a humorous note to add in. But.
And as we're considering it, it hasn't been said, but I think it's important that the person be a resident of the city.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're going to hear from people from all over, and I think that that's a very important part of it.
So it's in here, I think, right?
I didn't see it, maybe I overlooked
City
it.
resident, right?
Yeah. City resident, and at least 21. So some people can just, I won't say knock out of the box, but some people know right away that they can't apply. So city resident, not county, but city.
And as my grandmother used to poetically say, you can eat the fish and spit out the bone. So we can look at what people are doing in other places, and that would make sense for us. But I think to Mr. Williams' point, having something that uniquely, that it feels almost more organic and unique to our city, I think there's a lot of value in that. So at this point, I don't think I need to move anything, correct? Because we're going to make some adjustments with some of the feedback we got today. Well, Mr. Williams?
The only adjustment that I heard was, and I'm in favor of that, was the and/or, but I think kind of discussing the next steps of formally, I don't know if Corporation Council has an understanding of how we would, not to say we do that, but just for understanding for the council's sake.
Probably the next step, we would have to build draft the legislation so you have something formally in front of you. So that would be, we'll work on that based on what you've discussed here this evening and the outline that you had in the legislative request. We'll build upon that and then give you something in a legislative format for next time.
Don't we have to do an application to civil service to create a position?
I don't know, but at least we'll just get the draft of the, we'll just get the draft of the legislation, and then we can also work on civil service issues, but just a framework.
So if we do it originally without paying any money, do we still have to create a position within civil service.
Like the commissions and boards that we have don't get paid. Those are positions that are
Those are still through civil service?
been created through civil service.
Any other questions, comments around this? Okay, so we'll come to the council work on that, and on partnership, Ms. Williams, bring it back. Okay, that's all. Any other business to come before government operations? Okay, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Second, I'll second. All those in favor? Aye, we are adjourned.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order City Development and Planning. There are 2 items on the agenda. The first one is a discussion of the renaming of part of Schenectady Street to Walter Simpkins Way. Of course, we'll go through the normal process. There have been, like, almost, well, everyone knows who Walter Simpkins is, I won't say was. And, like, immediately after his passing, people, was contacted about wanting to do something on the street that he lived on, which was obviously Schenectady Street. And so then another person at his actual service said it, and so heard from several people who want want this to be a community-driven effort. They want to, do the work that's necessary to move it forward. So just essentially letting the council know that it's something that you can look forward to having happen within the next, I'm going to say, month or 2. And also inviting any input. Most of us knew Walter. And so if you have any input in terms of, this is the proposed name, I think it kind of flows. Walter Simpkins Way, because he certainly didn't have a way about him. And, so it will be moving forward. We're not asking, there's not an ask for anything outside of the normal process in order to get this done. Actually, the opposite, to be involved in the process to make sure that, the community, gets to put their name on it, essentially, is what it boils down to. So.
I just want to express strong support for that and appreciate you bringing that forward to the council. And I also appreciate the fact that we'll be going through the normal process. Highlighting that is important for people to know, but Walter Simpkins is an absolute giant, and I think that we will have a lot of community support around that.
So, anyone else? All right, so it's just an item for discussion. The second item is the discussion for ways to prevent trash dumping on hillside above I-90 and Wiley and Strong Street, including surveillance and fencing. So there was a cleanup last weekend, not this past weekend, the weekend before, and there was a significant amount of stuff brought up. I think it was like 10 tons is what Mr. LaFon told me of trash and garbage, and 210 tires, filled a couple dumpsters, and that still wasn't enough. Whole roadside of stuff. We know that people came to the council several months ago talking about that, so One Schenectady created this initiative, and volunteers came out, and will be ongoing. What we heard feedback from people that live above that on Wiley Street was that there needs to be a way to make it safer and more secure, and somehow stop people from being able to dump, because some people, I guess, apparently they just back their trucks up or cars up or whatever they're using, roll tires down the hill, I'm not sure, and get it down there. So there's been an ask for putting up some type of fencing that prohibits that, and also some surveillance so that when people are doing it, that we have a way to catch them. So I want us to really have some discussion around that. And I believe there was a letter to the editor that Bob Carroll from the Schenectady Foundation, but also with One Schenectady, wrote about that, basically talking about these same points. I believe that was in yesterday's paper. So I just want to open up to the council for discussion about how we can, consider that, and how we can, just make it safer overall and prevent this dumping. It's just, if you drive down I-890 coming into the city of Schenectady, actually on both sides, more on one side, but if you even on the other side in Mount Pleasant, you also see the dumping coming down the hill. And so it's something that needs to be addressed, and not only addressed that it's happening and for us to clean it up, but how do we then stop it from happening in the future? So I'm open to any ideas.
I'm wondering if
Mr. Mancini.
wanting to maybe have Mr. Wallen take a look at it and give us some options, proposals, and costs.
Of having it cleaned up or fencing?
Yeah, and well, some measures to take to prevent future dumping and what he thinks it would take.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Patrick?
Yes, that's a good suggestion. I was actually thinking that, first of all, I want to thank the folks that did the cleanup again, as we talked about last week. I think that Mr. Williams last week noted that we have to figure out ways to get people to change their behavior around this. Also, it's not just Wiley Street, but the littering issue, the dumping issues in many parts of the city. So I just want to throw that out there, that I do think that needs continued discussion around how do we get folks to change their behavior. And I think Mr. Williams brought that up last week at council. But, there's other places too. So I think if we could ask Mr. Wallen to help us with this issue, one that's at hand, but maybe also identify other areas where we can either continue to work with One Schenectady at bringing together, coalitions of volunteers in various neighborhoods, what are some other priority areas where the same issue is happening, so that we can maybe even, put it into a timeline or something where we, kind of knock it out one location at a time or something, so. Something like that.
Right. And we recently, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. So walking that neighborhood many times, we've seen the fences that have been cut through, we've seen the locks that are on the fences that are city property, the locks taken off. I think you had spoken once about seeing people just opening them up and going in there and backing in, and we can't patrol it at all hours of the day and night. I don't know what fencing quite honestly would do. I think the residents who own those properties where the dumping's happening, I think we need to at least address that issue with where all the construction debris is being dumped and tires and things. So again, I don't, and again, as the mayor and we put in our trash agenda, it's going to be, a misdemeanor now. There's going to be a big fine for dumping. And how many of these people are actually coming in from other municipalities, knowing that they can go there? I was down off of Lamopsy, resident had called me, and trash that's being dumped on Eastern Avenue Hill down over into Vale Park, Vale Cemetery. I believe there's one case that's under dispute with the landlord, but I think we should at least address these property owners somehow and see if they really know how any of this is getting there. Be more vigilant, look at their Ring cameras. We're a smart city. I'm sure there's all kinds of cameras and things up there, so those are different ways we can look at it as well.
I definitely agree with that. And in terms of like Wiley Street though, and so in terms of the fencing, I think it does more than prevent people. It's for the people on Wiley Street, it was also a safety issue in terms of children, etc. And most of the dumping was not, there's no houses there. It's a city, it's all the city property, so it's not like, on that side of Wiley Street, I think I can literally say there are maybe 5 houses, maybe 6, you say. So it's not like it's behind people's property. It's the city-owned property, very, very close to Brandywine, and then on the other end, the city-owned property, and some of it's state property, let me just be clear. But what we cleaned up was city-owned property towards Craig Street. So some of it's not behind people's houses, and I understand what you're saying. And the other part of that's making this challenging is that there's the privately owned, there's the city owned, and then there's the state property. So we actually are trying to work on something to work with the state to help facilitate getting some of that stuff off. But so I think we still need to really look at the fencing in terms of people putting it down the hill, especially where it's city-owned property, because that is where it seems like a lot of the dumping is taking place. And the person that you spoke about opened his gate and let somebody put a truck in there, and so that then, to me, speaks to the surveillance part of it. We need some level of surveillance because We can catch people only if we have some way to know that they're doing it. So I think that we really definitely need to be able to figure out the surveillance part of it. And I'm not sure, really what the camera process would be in trying to getting a camera along those areas, but I think it's something that needs to happen. Mr. Williams.
Yep, and I also disagree that fencing is more of a deterrent, just where now it is open-ended. As I drive down to take my kids to daycare in Glenville, I'm finding myself actively scanning that area, making sure that there's not new trash there, if not just to ensure my efforts were not for wasting, but to understand that the community truly appreciates what we did and recognizes that the investment of a lot of people who do not live in that area coming down in the areas, not only showing them that Schenectady, wherever they are, matters to them, but that community matters to them. And I think that has resounding impacts on those kids who we met and said hi to, and their evaluation of themselves and seeing that you matter and you're worth this. And to Ms. Patrick's point, I think there are plenty of areas for us to continue these efforts on, and I believe that is why it was so empowering to see a group like One Schenectady grab this and say, we are not going to continue to talk about this, we're going to do something about it. And as we have collective efforts annually to address trash and litter throughout the city of Schenectady, I would love to see a point where we don't have to, where we can just have a block party, appreciate how clean our city is. And I think that is a work in progress. But sincerely, we can't just clean the areas, we have to keep it clean. So I think a recommendation would be, I know the police department has a temporary surveillance. I don't know the protocol for requesting that. I would say in lieu of having Mr. Wallen review it, I would love to see the police department place that receptacle at least there temporarily. And I think that shows the residents that we are putting some resources in place to prevent this moving forward also, or to prevent future dumping in this area also.
Mr. Torrance. Thank you. As far as the police placing that there, so it could be there, it could be a deterrent, but you also need to know a specific time when something happened. It doesn't record constantly, so it's just here.
Yes, well, I thank you for your input, and we'll actually be speaking with the residents of Wiley Street, because that's where we began this, and getting their feedback and how we can help them, because I think it's very important that when there is an issue, a problem, that the residents people who are impacted by it, be part of the solution. I think it just goes a long way. So we'll be talking to those residents and seeing what we can do. And as was stated before, the cleanup efforts down there on that area will be ongoing, trying to get it done before everything starts growing up, because then it covers all the trash and nobody sees it, and you're like, oh, it's not that bad. And then we have fall again, and then it's that bad. So there will be ongoing efforts. So I want to thank you very much for your input, and we'll be bringing this back again. There's nothing else to come before City Development Planning. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye.
I would like to call order the Claims Committee. We have 4 items on the agenda tonight, all of which require executive session. So we have a motion to enter executive session. Second. All in favor? Aye, we are in executive session.
Members of the public will have to leave.
Oops.